Hey guys, in this video I'm gonna tell you an amazing story on how I ended up dating a Tinder swindler when I was 21. I love to say this is the story that's based on some book, but this is no fiction. This is just my my routine life. You know, when years later this movie came out, the Tinder swindler one, all of my friends who were watching it, they were like, but how can these girls be so stupid? How can they not see what's happening? And I never questioned that myself because I was the one who fell for all this crap and I truly, genuinely believed in all that. So how it all started. I was an exchange student in Madrid. So that was my first experience on living alone, like without my parents, renting my own room in the apartment. So this is like that was the moment when actually my adult life started. So I was 20 years old and then I met this guy. He was a year older than me, but he looked so cool and he looked like so way more mature. So I was like, oh my god, he's a really mature guy. Because you know, like when you were 20 and you were living on just a grant they gave you for studying in the university, your budget is kind of like zero. And he was like, you know, all mysterious, doing some business, not using Telegram or other socials because, I don't know, KGB can go look for him or something like that. And he was like, I'm studying in Italy and all that. So eventually we started dating and I decided to move to Italy, which was pretty stupid, but that's okay. That's another story. And yeah, that gave me the experience I would never give back. So I'm happy for whatever happened. But still. So I moved to Italy and then all the crap started. Before it was like, you know, very romantic, all beautiful. We were traveling in Italy, we went to Rome, he showed me Milan and all those cities, so I instantly fell in love with Italy. But then funny things started to happen. First thing I realized, we started talking about our exes because, you know, at 20 you're thinking like, well, it's no problem talking about them because you kind of had just one or two exes, so you don't have like this long list of relationship you need to mention. And he was like, you know, suddenly he turned this mysterious, shady look, and I'm like, oh, there is some deep trauma in that. Let me fix that. Let me find out what that is. So eventually I found out that he had this ex who died in a car accident. Spoiler, not true. I'm not even sure there was ever any ex. I'm not sure I wasn't the first one he had. So he was like, yeah, like that gave me a big trauma. Like she was hit by one of my competitors in business, so this is how he tried to like get revenge on me. And I'm like, and me, like, you know, living my 20s, my craziest story is like how I got drunk and just get back home. So that's the biggest I can get. That's the craziest story I got. And he is like 21, being 21, having this dead ex, and I'm like, oh my god. For a couple of months, I was actually trying to find that incident on the internet. I was like, I know the date. I probably know the name, so I'll find that. This guy, he had a friend, the only friend he had, who was also very, you know, shady, like very schemy. I never knew what's happening, like why did they become friends in the first place. Every time he talked about him, he addressed him more as a servant than a friend. This guy also knew something and he was covering that story for the dead ex and many stories that are coming in advance. So this dead ex story kind of put me up in the position where I already lost because, you know, there is no way to compete with dead people because they're like, ultimately they're better than you because they're dead. So like whatever a person thinks of them is like just only the best thing. So I'm like, I lost this one and he still thinks about her. Oh, this is so like heartbreaking. Then some other time I went to Moscow to visit my family, to spend time with my friends, and I used to have a guy friend. Like we were purely just friends and we've been classmates for 11 years, so it's like we're friends. We've known each other for 11 years. Nothing ever happened. So I'm meeting this guy friend and another girlfriend. So he's just texting me randomly like, what you doing? And I'm like, oh, you know, I just went out for like to meet my friends. And he's like, what kind of friends? What gender of friends? And I'm like, my boyfriend, guy friend, and my girlfriend, who are also my classmates. He's like, oh, so you find that okay? And I'm like, look, It's not like I'm going on dates. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just meeting my friends. Like, people are supposed to have friends, And he got so jealous and so obsessive about it. So he was like, if this is how you value our relationship, if this is how you treat me, if this is the way you see our relationship, then I don't see, like, what do we have in common? Like, what's the point to continue? And I already moved all of my bags to Italy. Like, all of my stuff is there. Okay, it's not that, like, it doesn't worth $1 million, but still. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, 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 no. Like, it has nothing to do with breakup. We're dating. We're together. Like, we have feelings. I'm just meeting a friend. Has nothing to do with you. So he wouldn't just let it go. And then he gave me this phrase, like, if you do this, I don't see a reason not to go and do some cocaine. And I'm like, but those dots are not even connected. But like, again, I was 20, 21 probably already. And I was like, I don't want to be responsible for another dead body. Okay, live alone the dead ex, but dead boyfriend, like, I'm too young for that crap. I don't want that to happen. So it's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And like deep inside me, I kind of knew, like, this is manipulation, that's not the way people are supposed to treat you. But also there's been already this emotional bond. So, I'm like, I feel responsible kind of for the person. I didn't go to a therapist back then, so I didn't know that it's other people's choice I'm not responsible of. But still. So I'm trying, like, to calm things down, like to calm him down, keep explaining myself. So instead of actually spending time with friends, quality time or any time, I'm just absent there. I'm just keep texting the guy not to do drugs because I met a friend. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing the manipulation. I'm not playing that game. I just stopped texting him back. So I do that, and in 15 minutes, this shady friend of his texts me like, did you see his tweet? And I'm like, he has a Twitter? So I go on his Twitter, and there is something like, I don't see a point of that all. And this shady friend texts me, last time he wrote something like this, he ended up in somewhere on the streets, and his mother found him there. So I think he's in real trouble. Are you guys okay? And I'm like, that's because of me. We're not okay. Really, what did I do to the guy? So I get like, panic. I'm panicking for being responsible for a potential death of a boyfriend we've been dating for like, 3 months maybe? So I'm like, okay. I'm not seeing my friend. I'm going home right now. Just please don't do whatever you're like feeling like doing. So like, it's okay. We settled things down. He did the drugs to punish me or himself. And I never saw my friend again after this. But that's not how story ends. Another time, right before my studies in Italy started, because I moved there for going to the university as well. Like, I needed a legal reason to stay there long term. So before that, I went to Bulgaria. That's the country I've been going to for the past 14 years. So I spent my entire childhood there. And also my best friend lives there. I mean, like, she went there on vacation as well. So that was my last chance to see my family and my friends before I would move to Italy completely and wait for my documents, so I couldn't leave the country, So I didn't know when would be the next time I see all of my friends, all the closest ones, because I didn't have anyone in Italy. So you kind of get the idea how important that trip was, how I wanted to see everybody, like how badly I wanted to see everybody. I invited him to come with me, but he couldn't, or something happened, he was busy or something like that, so he didn't go. So I'm like, okay, 2 weeks, I'm going there. And that was the first summer. My friend ended up living alone. So imagine, before she was living with her grandma or her dad or her brother. And this is the first time us girls can hang out, just the two of us. So that was very brilliant. Like, it was supposed to be an amazing trip for me. So I go there and I live with my friend, because on my families, they didn't have spot for me. I could just sleep on the floor. So that made sense that I spend time with them during the day, and then I hang out with my friends. Didn't even know why I'm explaining this. Like, it's basic things, it's normal things, but I feel like I still need to justify all those natural things I did. But anyway, so I stayed with my friends. And that summer, she got into a new relationship. She was very in love and everything. So sometimes her boyfriend come over and stay with her, separate room. Like, I live in a separate room, they live in a separate room, because they're 2 bedrooms. So one of the evenings we're texting, he's like, hey, what you're doing? And I'm like, oh, I already hate that question because it doesn't bring anything well. But I'm like, like we're just chilling, hanging out, watching a movie or something. He's like, we? I'm like, yes, me and my friend. He's like, is there anybody else with you? And I'm like, where did I turn wrong? Like, what is happening in my life? So I'm trying to explain to him that my friend recently got a boyfriend. They're happy together, so it's only natural they want to spend time together. And I live with her, so like, apparently that makes us neighbors. He's like, so you're living with another guy now? I'm like, I'm not exactly living with him, I'm living with my friend. So we got in a very massive fight. We were like fighting, texting for like hours. And it made me so exhausted that I couldn't find a better way to escape that conversation than pretending that I had a panic attack. Like I just turned off my phone and I went on like sleeping with my heart pounding. I felt crazy. I felt like, if this is what I have to do in my relationship, like, what's next? I'm gonna pretend that I'm pregnant. What's next? So I told my friend the whole story. She was like, fuck the guy. I'm like, can't, like, we're in love, I can do that. Like, I can drop the guy, I'm a very committed person. So next morning we go to the beach. We're just like, I feel numb and without any energy. My phone is still turned off. So at some point he starts texting my friend saying like, so where is she? I'm worried about her. All those kind of things. She's a very good actress, so she's like, what the hell did you do, dude? She just had a panic attack. We had to call for emergency. They took her to the hospital and she spent the night over there. I'm like, thank you. Thank you that I have such a good friend. So we had to pull this drama just to, I don't know, let me sleep peacefully, maybe. But this is like the crazy part, so you get the picture. So why do I call him a Tinder swindler? So that you understand, he always pretended that he had money because he had business. So he, at his age, already was very successful and lived completely on his own. I couldn't afford that. I still had some money left from this grant university in Madrid. I did some freelance work, but that wasn't sufficient to live, like fully live. So he was like, I'm gonna rent for us a beautiful apartment right in the center of Bologna. This is the town in north of Italy, which he actually did. So I'm like dating a billionaire. And at 21, you're like, you feel very excited about it. You're like, it's not even about the money. It's more about this alpha energy. You're like, oh my God, I'm living a dream. Spoiler alert, every time you think that way, you're probably dating either a narcissist or abuser, but took me a while to understand that. So we go to this apartment, we move, I unpack my things, we start living together. And then in September, we would have our half-a-year anniversary. If you ever lived in it, probably you don't know those guys because I think it's just for us Russians. But either way, bureaucracy in Italy is one of the worst ones. Literally, it takes you forever to get any type of document. So our anniversary is coming and he's like, I booked for us something like a 4-season hotel in Paris. And I'm like, I am definitely living in a dream. And he shows me the pictures of a website, not just the booking or something, just the website itself. He finds the most expensive suite they have there. And he's like, that's the room we're gonna have. And I'm like, I just love that guy. I love my life. And then he's like, and there is a private jet waiting for us. And again, 21. I'm not coming from a rich family. I'm a normal kid going to a normal school, studying in normal universities. I've never seen this life before, just in movies. And I'm like, private jet? Wait, did I just wake up and ended up in a royal family or something like that? And I'm like, I get super excited. I'm like, wow, I love you so much. Wow, thank you for doing that for me. He's like, but there's an issue. We don't have documents. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. He's like, I will fix that. Let me call to an Italian embassy or a consulate or something like that. So he pretends to be calling there and asking for documents. They will actually pick up the phone. They will actually tell you, oh, by the way, guys, okay, you want it now? No problem. We'll give it you straight away. Just come and pick your documents. We actually, we intended to do them for another 6 months, but Since you want it fast, we make it fast. Of course, they tell him the documents are not ready. As I'll find out later, they won't be ready for another 11 months, and that's a very basic story. Like, you actually apply for your documents kind of in August, you get them the next August, and by September, they already expired. So you kind of wait for the whole year for your documents to come through, and you can't even really use them because they're useless. Like, you can't use those trips for €10, like coming from Italy to Paris, because you don't have documents. The only place you can go is going back home. And I get like super, upset. But mostly not even because we couldn't go, but because I look at him and he looks so upset. Like, he spent so much money on that trip, and there's still the private jet waiting for us, but we can't use it because. And I felt so sorry for him. I was like, no problem, we can just go for a walk. I don't really need anything. It's not like I got anything, but I still don't need anything because we're living on a pure love. But that's not even the end. At some point, he's like, today, my competitor, my business competitor, the one that got my ex killed, he's coming to Italy. I don't know why anybody would go to Bologna, but like, the competitor would go. He's like, today, the destiny of my business is being like, I will see that. Today, we decide who stays on the market and who leaves. So he gives me the scratches of information, and I kind of figure he's like, there's gonna be I might even need a gun. I'm like, now I'm living in a thriller or something like that. Wow, the guy's really tough. So he stages this whole thing up. So he's like going on a mission, we're like a Mad Max movie. And I'm, as a loyal wife, waiting for him at home. We lived on the last floor, third floor or something like that. So it was there was a window in our apartment, in the ceiling. I don't know what sick mind he made me to have, but I started imagining that if I would be on this competitor thing, like how they do in thrillers and all the blockbuster movies, they sent in Sherlock, for example, they send a gunman to the, the weakest spot of that bad guy or the good guy, his girlfriend. So I truly imagined there would be a guy who would put me on the, who would try to kill me. And since we have a lot of windows even in the ceiling, I would be an easy target. I would be they would just shoot me very easily. So I didn't find anything better than to hide, across the wall. I was just sitting there and waiting for it. I don't want to die like this. I don't want to die in a gunfire. I'm too young. So you can imagine the amount of stress I was going through. And then my phone rings and I'm picking up the phone. I'm like, hi. And there's this silence, this mysterious silence. And I'm like, hello? And then 30 seconds later, he's like, I did it. And I'm like, I felt like I'm in a Rambo movie or something like that. I'm like, I'm dating a hero. He made it. I actually didn't ask what he did to, what did he do to the guy, but dead ex, dead competitor, one more dead person, doesn't really count. So you imagine the plot twist I was in. And I truly, genuinely believed in all those things because in my healthy head, people don't lie about this. It doesn't make sense to lie about that. It just doesn't. So even though he won over his competitor, still at some point, I think 8 months later, he said his business is having some major crashes, so he doesn't have money anymore. And I'm like, ooh, wow, that's interesting. So actually, I'm very entirely thankful to this whole situation because this is how I started doing freelance. This is how I started earning money on my blog. This is how I became pretty popular blogger in Russia, because I needed to provide for the family we're building. So yeah, he just he suddenly, out of the blue, he stopped having any money. For me, that wasn't a problem because money is a thing. Today you have it, tomorrow you lose it. For me, it's no problem. We're all humans. And when we started dating, I didn't have any money. So I was like, but we're a family, we're a strong couple, we can go through this. So for the next 2 years and a half, I kind of paid for us. I paid for all the trips we had, I paid for food. Most of my money I earned, I spent on us because I felt very guilty spending it on something else, like my clothes or my travels. Like there was just a couple of trips I had with my friends, like very short ones, like 1 day go and back, or like 3 days at least. That was maximum I could afford because rest of the money they went on everything we did, on everything we ate, on everything we had. But he still paid for the rent. The important thing, we're living, just like imagine this, the level of stupidity there. We're living right in the center of Bologna. The apartment is extremely cheap. Well, for us two students, that was like 1,000 euro, I think. That is just crazy. But not only that, the all the amenities were insanely expensive because in Italy it depends on the like on state of a building you're living in. So the older building is, the harder it gets to put water, electricity, gas there. So our bills were kind of the same, like 700, 800 euro per month. Meanwhile, he was the one who told me, I'm taking responsibility, I'm paying for all that because like I'm a student, I can't afford anything. So I'm like, okay, if you feel like you can afford that, that's okay. I can't. Just like I'm going through, I just can't afford that. I'm not even working. I'm doing freelance projects, but that's not enough to cover 1,700 per month. That's just for me. I'm not on that level yet. So he said that, but since then, since the day one, most of the time our AC didn't work. It just wouldn't turn on because we never could cover full payment for the gas and electricity and everything. The only light we had was, this small table lamp. That was the only light we had. And I was reading books by it. Like, it's completely dark, but you still, like, I was like reading crazy amount of books during the year because I was like, I need to work for that family. Washing machine also didn't work most of the time. Dishwasher didn't work. Stove also most of the times didn't work. So I don't even know how I survived throughout those 3 years. So every time I was like, look, I still don't earn this much to afford to pay for the amenities like this. So it makes sense to consider to move out, like find a cheaper apartment. There are tons of them. Do you know what the answer was? No, 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 no. We don't need to find another apartment because soon we're moving to Rome or Milan. And I'm like, bro, we just don't have any money. We can't afford living even in Bologna. How are we supposed to move to Rome? He's like, my business will like have a massive breakthrough very soon, very soon. So like I was trusting a person. I was like, well, okay. So at time point he was like, I'm paying all the rent. Maybe you could just do something as well and kind of provide too, like put your share in them. Like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I would love for you to pay for the amenities, which is like the same amount of money. I'm like, that wasn't the deal, because I still find it extremely crazy to pay this much money for just gas that we don't even have most of the time. But I'm like, okay. So I start paying for electricity, like for all the bills. Somehow he manages to pull out some money from a business that doesn't work, doesn't function anymore. So I should feel for the guy. Like it's really like he's working his ass off to have his own money, even though his business is crashing and everything goes wrong, while I keep paying for the food and trips and like restaurants and everything. And I'm like, okay, I pay for them. So I pay for the bills, and then one day I'm just like, arranging things, just cleaning the house, cleaning the apartment, and I find the bills. I find the bills from Western Union with his dad's signature, and I find the exact amount of money to pay for the rent and for everything, and I'm like, so you wanna tell me you put paying for the bills on me, justifying that you're like working your ass off to pay the rent, and the apartment we can't really afford, you're not even earning those money, like it's just your dad sending them to you. And I found tons of like bills, like hundreds of them even, and I'm like, meanwhile we were doing like kinda business together. So let me explain what exactly we did. He did nothing. He was coding, kind of like he started like learning IT things. So I'm like, okay, well, that's very admirable because, that's very like tough thing to do. So he was like, I'm working on a website, and we were building an online school because I already had audience on my Russian Instagram. So I was like, it makes sense to like build, like, sell courses from different experts on target, on marketing, on sales, on content creation, all those kind of things. So I want to kind of create a school for digital experts. He's working on the website. So he's working, and I'm like finding speakers. I talk to them, I find the expert, I interview them, I help them create the lectures. I do the arrangements for all the video shooting and everything in the studios. I pay for those studios. I pay for the guys who are like, the cameramen. I edit those videos from scratch. I sell those courses. I do, this whole launch thing when you day by day, step by step, explaining to people why it is important to learn those courses, like why this knowledge is really a must have in your life. So I'm doing pretty much everything. I'm sending emails like manually, telling people like, hey, you bought this course, congratulations, we're waiting for you on our website, have a good luck studying. And then I'm like, so how's the website going? And he's like, okay, just like last little touches left. And then I see just nothing. I just see the white screen. So in front of my eyes, he just chooses a template from Tilda, which is not really IT, like it's for people to build websites like me, people from non-IT. And I'm like, so basically I also create the website. I do everything. By the way, I pay taxes, so I literally do everything. And then he's like, so what's it gonna be? Like, when are we splitting? Like, when do you give me 50% of the money you earn? I'm like, something doesn't seem right. I'm from humanities. I'm not that good at math, but still something just doesn't go well there. So this is how I've been having a relationship with not that fancy, not that expert, but still kind of Tinder swindler. And we met on Tinder, as you can see. 3 years after, I got really lucky that I had my own money. I didn't give up. I didn't give all the money to him. I basically paid for the things I also enjoyed. And then I realized it's not worth it. So I left Italy. I went back to Moscow. I loved it there so much after this 3 years of just not being able to spend your money on yourself because of the guilt, because of the shame that you're like, well, we're building a family and I'm like this selfish bitch. I don't want to be that one. And then a year later, I was just like, it was a COVID lockdown. So I was just locked. I was basically locked in my home and I was doing paint by numbers thing. I was just drawing, coloring the picture. And then I was watching some video on abusive relationship. And I was just like, coloring my painting. The girl started mentioning all the, the checklists. She basically gave a checklist for an abusive relationship. And I'm just, because when I left, I just felt sorry for the guy because he clearly had a depression or something like that, but I couldn't save him. I was, many times I told him, like, you should go to a doctor, like, you should see a therapist, you should seek help because you're definitely not doing okay. And it's been 2.5 years, you didn't earn any money. That's not okay. Like, you should do something. We're grown-ups now. Like, you need to, be capable of living your life. And just a year later, I realized that was a relationship with emotional abuse. Like, I was gaslit, I was always suppressed, I never could talk. I felt guilty for not having money, and then I felt guilty. He made me feel guilty for working all the time and earning money for us. So this is how it all ended. I'm extremely thankful for the guy to actually, thanks to him, I started earning my first money and my first big money. I built my blog, and this is partially what led me to having an international YouTube account. So I'm very thankful for that experience. But yeah, this is how I ended up dating a Tinder swindler. So every time you ask yourself, if you ever wonder, how those stupid girls couldn't see the truth just in front of their eyes, you could send them my video explaining why exactly. So tell me what you think of this whole situation, guys. Tell me in the comments. Feel free to share your stories if you had something like that. And thank you for watching the videos. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next videos.